Flashy girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Oh, Mr. Sheffield. You're listening to NPR with our new podcast about The Nanny, a hit sitcom from the 90s, with your host, Sean DiPasquale, and co-host,
Tori Sheffield.
I wanted to try something new for the opening. I always go really big, but this guy was like, oh, I'm going to do like an NPR beginning.
Yeah, I like it. It's
Did it work?
Yeah, I was transported. I just wanted to respond with, it's great to be here, Sean. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you, Toria. We're here today to talk about, what if we did the whole episode? We should commit to a whole episode like this just to see if we can do it.
Just do a whole bit.
I wonder if people would like that. Hey, if you're listening to this episode and you really enjoyed those first couple of moments and you wish that that was our cadence for a full episode, let us know and we'll do it. Speaking of letting us know, the other thing before we jump into the meat is, I was looking at our like analytics, and 76% of our audience is in the United States. Okay, that tracks, right? 25% not in the United States. That blows my mind. So if you are in Australia, Germany, Canada, the UK, or Austria, and you're listening to this show, please get in touch with us. Oh, Mr. Chef Pod on Instagram or Twitter. Like, just reach out and be like, hey, I'm in this place. Like, I'm a real person, because that's fascinating. And then the other cool thing, which blew our minds, 76% in the United States. I would think, Toria also agreed, okay, that's got to be like, at least 50% of that 75% is in like New York and LA. And then everyone else is like scattered, right? No, 12% California, 12% New York. And then the rest is literally like every state. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So also, if you're in those places, if you're in Florida, my hometown, please reach out. I would love to know where in Florida you are. But also like Ohio, reach out. Arizona, who's listening in Arizona? 2% of you. Where are you at? Connecticut, Michigan, Louisiana. My sister used to live there. Where in Louisiana are you? We want to hear from you guys. So please, if you're in one of these places across and look, New York, LA, we hear from you. We know you exist. Sit down. This is the other people's turns. Now let's hear from the rest of the country. I'm very curious how you found the show, what you love about The Nanny. So reach out to us on our social media, or you can email us at Mr. Sheffield podcast at gmail.com. All right. Enough business, Toria. Let's get to the meat and potatoes.
Let's get to the pleasure.
Yes. This is season 3, episode 21. Where's the pearls?
Mm-hmm. A play on the classic 90s Where's the Beef commercials. That's what I was thinking. But either way, so this is the episode where Elizabeth Taylor guest stars. And the plot of the episode is Fran loses these very expensive pearls of Liz Taylor's and gets amnesia, doesn't know where they are. This was a very big deal because, first of all, Elizabeth Taylor, especially at the time, like one of the biggest stars on the planet. But this was part of an extra special 4-show crossover event called Liz Night.
Okay,
I'm gonna break it all down in trivia.
Okay, we'll save a lot of this for trivia. I do want to just say this whole thing blew my mind, and also I think the Elizabeth Taylor thing also has always blown my mind. I'm as old as I am. I was too young for the Elizabeth Taylor train, but it was like aware of who this was. She was just like some like kind of old lady who like, I don't know, never really gave a performance in anything that I saw that I was like, wow, she's really great. And she was older at that point. So I didn't understand like why everyone was like, oh, she was the most beautiful person that ever lived. Like, I just never got it. I never got it. It was for people like, I guess 15 to 20 years older than I am.
Well, I would say, maybe 20 years for sure. Because she comes from the height of the like mythology of the Hollywood star. And she was, not only very talented, but then known for her like, lavish jewel collections. And she'd be at, dinners with European royalty. And so there was just like the cult of Elizabeth Taylor. And, Elizabeth Taylor famously was married to, divorced, and then remarried to Shakespearean actor Richard Burton. And it was sort of like the age where the media and celebrity journalism was more controlled and less exploitative, which meant, you know, you got less truth, but you also always got the shiny side of the coin. And I think like our parent, like our mothers probably are like, ooh, Elizabeth Taylor, you know?
Well,
like,
I mean, this was also an era, and oddly enough, for a really good look at Hollywood and tabloids sort of relationship in this era, the movie LA Confidential actually does a very good job at portraying what it was like, at least from other nonfiction based books that I've read. That James Elroy did a really good job of sort of portraying how like this whole system was, you know, before TMZ and before like that level of paparazzi. There was a much more simpatico between the studios and the press and the paparazzi, as it were, you know, so you did only get the sugar coated version of everything that the studios wanted you to have. You know, there was a much more, their wagons were circled much more closely. So it was like you got into the studio system, the studio heads protected you from any untoward press coverage with payoffs and access to other stars and whatever else they were doing, probably very much illegally. And so, yeah, you had a much more crafted look. And I guess that's what you're saying. That's what people loved about Elizabeth Taylor there was this mystique to her and she was just part of that.
I think it was just like, you know, it was like pure glamour and there, you know, yes, we knew there was some
she was
drama.
Like a Lady Gaga of her time.
But I was going to say, but with incredible acting chops. But Gaga also has incredible acting chops.
And like I said, so she was the Lady Gaga of her time. I'll watch Lady Gaga. Listen, I fucking hated the Joker. But they tell me they're making a Joker 2 with Lady Gaga and it's going to be a musical. I'm going to be the first person to buy a ticket for that.
Lady Gaga. I am there.
Right? I'm there. I'm like, all right, you got me into the Joker 2, I guess.
Oh, yeah. But so, okay. So
let's get into it on this episode of The Nanny.
The episode, okay. It starts with the classic Mr. Sheffield trying to trick Fran and get her out of the house because a celebrity is coming over and he doesn't want her there.
This killed me, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the way it was orchestrated was very funny. Like, Mr. Sheffield comes in and he asks Niles to bring over some documents to John F. Kennedy Jr. And he does it in front of Fran.
Yes.
Causing Fran to go, what? No, I'll do it. I'll make sure he signs these. She grabs the documents and runs out. At which point Niles is like, so which movie star is coming over, sir? And then Maxwell goes, Elizabeth Taylor. And they like high five at the ruse because they like feel like they've got it down to such a science, but they don't because she's 10 steps ahead of them. She then like emerges through the other kitchen door and is like, okay, what's going on? She's like, you wouldn't let me near George Kennedy, let alone John Kennedy.
Which I really liked. I really liked this. I liked it. This whole episode was really well written. Like the writing was just very clever. It was all like character based and like it all made sense. So like her going and being like overcome with excitement and then getting like halfway to the outside and being like, wait a minute, they're not going to let me near this guy. Like, and then turning around and coming back in the back door. It all like actually really tracks. And I thought it was very funny, but it was also like not predictable.
Yes,
you know,
totally.
it was great.
Yes. And like, so, you know, the net total of all of this is she finds out Elizabeth Taylor is coming to the house and she, of course, freaks out. Yes. And then we cut to her a little later that day. She's in the coolest sweater ever. I would love that sweater. She looks
really cool.
Yeah. It's like just a hip, cool, like very brightly colored sparkly thing. And she's literally practicing her Elizabeth Taylor greeting for when Elizabeth Taylor comes over, complete with a handshake and then a camera flash because she's put a timed camera on the table in the foyer to capture the moment. But then Mr. Sheffield comes in and he reminds her that she is forbidden to hang around his office or do anything to try to create a diversion, which might lead to her meeting Elizabeth Taylor, which is funny because then Gracie comes in yelling, Fran, I think I broke my arm. And Fran's like, save it. We've been busted. And then we literally cut to a little bit later. Niles is in the kitchen and he is all set to greet Elizabeth Taylor, who's actually about to arrive now. The doorbell rings. He tries to exit into the dining room like usual, but the door has been blocked. Fran has literally trapped him in there with like an end table. So then he tries to go through the back door.
It was like a china cabinet. It was giant. It was like she dragged a giant cabinet in front of the kitchen door, and he tries to open it, and he's like, ugh.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, I'll go around the house, and he opens the back door, and there's a guard dog.
Yo, this episode had so many good. I thought that was so funny.
Fran would have acquired a vicious guard dog.
I mean, it's like so silly, but it plays so fast. It was great. It was fantastic. We should mention Dorothy Lyman directed this one, and as always, just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
Great direction from Dorothy. And it was written by Frank Lombardi, who I think's written a couple of our other favorite, really fun episodes before. And man, Frank's very funny.
Mm-hmm. It was so good. And then, so this allows Fran to be like the only one available to actually open the door. And of course, Mr. Sheffield doesn't know that Niles is trapped, so he doesn't think to run out and answer the doorbell when it rings. Yes. So, Fran answers, and she's like doing all the stuff she's been told like don't do. She's being super weird with Elizabeth Taylor. She's getting the picture.
So weird, and Elizabeth Taylor is being so gracious. I will give her that. She's just like very chill about the whole thing.
And she literally goes, "So are you Maxwell's wife?" And Fran goes, "Oh no, I've actually never been married." And then I love this because in this almost very confused way, Liz Taylor goes, "Not even once," which is just a very Liz Taylor joke, like famously married 6 times, being a good sport about it. Yes. And so Fran then goes to hang up Liz Taylor's coat. And when she opens the closet door, Sylvia... Okay.
I screamed. Like, I was like, ah!
Sylvia is in the closet, peering out.
She opens the door and Sylvia's just hiding in the closet.
Just waiting.
Oh my God. And then she has my favorite line where she comes out of the closet and she curtsies in the most awkward way. And she goes, "This meeting bestills an honor on me, which is unparalleled in my universe."
Yes, I have that written down too. She's trying to be fancy as if she's meeting royalty. She's such trash. It's so good. Unparalleled within my universe.
This meeting bestows an honor upon me, which is unparalleled within my universe.
Yep.
What the fuck are you talking about?
They're literally like bowing and curtsying. And then the others finally come in, including Niles, whose pants are completely tattered from the dog attack. But then everybody else is so flustered too because she's such an icon. Niles even goes, "How do you do, Tismela? I'm Biles the Nutler." Biles the Nutler was such a silly, funny joke. And then Mr. Sheffield, invites Liz Taylor into his office. But before they can go, she asks Fran if she'll do her a favor. And she's like, "I have these very expensive black pearls, this necklace, and I need to send them to this address. Can you arrange for them to be sent via a bonded courier?" Yeah. And Fran takes the pearls. She and Sylvia literally back away while compulsively curtsying, and they're like, "Yes, my queen. Yes, my queen." And
doesn't she goes, "I will do your bidding,"
something like that. And I'll say this whole thing really was a promotion that Elizabeth Taylor was doing for her new perfume fragrance, Black Pearls. So she even says like, "Oh, I have these very, expensive pearls. They're for this perfume. I'm
reminds me of the time that we had Macaulay Culkin do a whole series of YouTube guest spots on other YouTube shows to promote. And not quite the same level, but same concept, right? Hey, wheel this person out and have them show up in a bunch of stuff that people are watching, that the young people are watching. How times change.
And so then, Fran is like thrilled to do it. But then Sylvia is like, honey, I wouldn't trust this with some, bonded courier. Like, you should do this yourself. And
she goes, I don't trust no licensed, bonded, armed courier. She says it like so. She goes, you don't trust no licensed, bonded, armed couriers. It's like
she's like, they're just screaming, rob me.
Rob me.
So that sets up, Fran to make the decision to hand deliver the pearls.
Yeah.
And also she was like, Ma, I can't believe you hid in that closet. And she's like, well, it actually wasn't my idea, which causes Fran to go back to the closet, open it and go, okay, Yetta, you can come out. And Yetta is also in there, which made me like thrilled.
Yes.
But then we get like in the best way possible a top of a hat, because we cut to Fran in a cab. The cab driver is none other.
Look at you. You're like Biles the Nutler over here.
None other than Rosie O'Donnell.
This is, by the way, Rosie O'Donnell's best era. And there's a lot of eras of Rosie, and she mostly kind of, after her talk show ended, kind of went away and to live her life. But this Rosie O'Donnell is the Rosie O'Donnell that I absolutely fell in love with. I thought she was just so funny, and like her delivery is fantastic. And I adore this Rosie.
Yeah, it was an incredible scene. She's playing this sort of like tough, kind of Brooklyn cab driver. And Fran says something to her like, you're a very unpleasant person. At which point Rosie O'Donnell starts to sob. And she's like, I've had a very stressful week, a lot of pain. And Fran's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And while they're distractedly talking and also bonding. I think they get in like a funny.
Yeah. Did you notice like Fran starts crying with her at one point? Like they're both tearing up, and then they start to bond, and like it's like kind of nice. And then and then Rosie's distracted from driving, and she doesn't see. Fran keeps going, stoplight, and then she slams on the brakes. Fran smacks her head against the divider in the middle of the cab. The pearls go flying out of the box, and then that's it. We go to commercial.
Fran gets knocked unconscious too.
Yeah. Fran gets knocked unconscious.
Which again, and we sort of breezed over it for the sake of time, but this was a great scene. Rosie had a lot of really funny lines. But then we cut to Fran in a hospital bed. She has temporary amnesia from like a concussion from bumping her head. And this is a really big problem because she has no idea where Liz Taylor's pearls are. And there's actually this really funny line where, Fran clearly thinks that like the Sheffield children are her children and Maxwell was her husband. And she looks at Yetta and she goes, wow, things worked out so well for me. I've got a gorgeous husband and 3 beautiful kids. And then Yetta goes, no, you're confused. The 2 oldest are from a previous marriage, which, if anything, just shows that Yetta's always confused. It made me laugh so hard. But then
it's a good running gag because there's also a line where Sylvia refers to Brighton as the boy. She goes, the boy told me.
Yeah, we're like, the boy let me in.
3 years, she still doesn't know his fucking name. Yeah. It's so good.
Yes. But this episode, it was just like, crowning scene on top of crowning scene. When you were like, oh, like, this is going to be the best scene. And then they'd pull another one out. Yeah. In this case, so we've established that Fran has amnesia, the pearls are lost, and she kind of maybe thinks she's married to Mr. Sheffield. We got to Mr. Sheffield that evening in his bathtub. We finally get to see that bathtub, firstly, which we have. There's been so many references to this tub over the last 3 years. I literally also wrote, it's amazing.
Yeah, they didn't let it down. There was not a letdown. They fit 2 full-sized human beings in that bathtub. They were dwarfed by it. It was incredible.
Huge bathtub, a bubble bath. There's like all these beautiful plants around it. I mean, Niles has to really maintain a household. I'll say that. It's hard to keep plants alive, especially in a bathroom. But so...
the more they show of the house, the less I believe that Niles is the only person working there.
Oh, yes. I mean, it would be like torture There's no way.
I mean, it seems like he would have to be working 18-hour days.
Yes, maybe he's just like a house manager of
He
something.
sleeps for like 3 hours and gets up and does it all over again. It seems like a nightmare.
Maybe probably the reality of a lot of hired help in this country.
I know. It's terrible. Give Niles a raise.
Yeah, let's make that our political statement of 2022. Give Niles a raise, and that's as political as we're going to get. No, but so then Mr. Sheffield, he closes his eyes to relax, at which point the door creaks open, and it is Fran in a bathrobe. She takes the bathrobe off, and she gets in the bubble bath. Completely nude.
Does he see her naked? That's the implication here. No,
because his eyes were closed while she
right,
did that.
Because he's relaxing. Right.
And he opens them to see her across from him. And she's clearly like, honey, like, open your eyes. And he freaks out because he's like, instantly he's like, oh my God, Miss Fine is naked in a tub with me. She clearly thinks she's my wife. And he's for a second about to take advantage of this. But then he comes to his senses and he's like, no, I can't do this. He's like, you're not my wife. Like, you work for me. You're my nanny. And I said, this is a very overboard situation. If anybody remembers that, it's a
Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I used to really love this movie. It's very problematic.
I think they did a reboot recently, and they tried to fix it.
Yes, it's Anna Faris, and some other guy. They did a reboot. But the whole thing is this very, very wealthy woman who lives on a yacht.
She's real mean.
So mean.
She's like really evil.
Yeah, she's just like so entitled and spoiled. She's never known anything but luxury. Yeah. And this repairman played by Kurt Russell, very working class guy, comes on the yacht, makes some repairs.
She's so rude to him. Like, he's just trying to make a living, and she's like a total dick.
And then that night, she ends up falling overboard in a storm and kind of washing ashore, and she hits her head and has amnesia, and she's on the local news, and they're like, if anyone knows who this woman is.
And then he sexually assaults her.
I mean, so here's the thing. Kurt Russell, in that sort of, nothing too thought out way as movies used to be in like this. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to get back at that mean lady. Like, I'm going to convince her she's my wife, and then I'm going to humiliate her. Or there's some logic to that.
Here's the thing. This movie, the easiest fix to make that movie work would have just have it been not Kurt Russell in the beginning. It's way less creepy if she's mean to a bunch of people in the beginning of the movie, a bunch of working class people. She's a real jerk. She falls off a boat. She hits her head. She gets found by just some other regular schlub. And then they fall in love, and it's not like a revenge thing. He doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know who she is. They start to fall in love. Her memories never start to form, but they're the wrong memories. And she learns to be humble, and she learns what it's like to be in a working class situation. So she still has the same character growth. It's just not this weird revenge, I'm gonna humiliate. And
because at first he's like, ha ha, I'm gonna make you clean my house, and I'm gonna make you have to I'll do all the gross tasks, from she has these 4 horrible boys. But then of course, they grow to love each other, and then they eventually have sex, and they're really a married couple, and then her memory comes back, and it's just oh no, lots going on here. But people loved this movie, and it was a classic Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell comedy of its time.
It was.
And I remember it so vividly. I remember so much about it.
Me too. I love that movie.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
But this is very overboard in that, she has amnesia and he's about to take advantage of it. So that's where it overlaps. But while they're, so literally he's like, no, you need to get out. And she's like, I'm not getting out first. You get out. He's like, I'm not getting out first. And then they literally start splashing each other, which evolves into a very fun bubble bath splash fight. Niles happens to walk in on this while holding the mobile phone. And he's like delighted because, you know, in his mind, this is just like the evolution of them getting closer. And it's obviously like very sexy in its own way. Yeah. So he's like, oh, don't worry, Mr. Sheffield. I'll tell Miss Babcock you'll return her call when Miss Fine gets out of the bath with you. and he says it so loudly into the phone to make sure Cece can hear it. And I wrote, he has a Hannibal Lecter-like delight when he does.
He does. He's getting like pure like life energy from her misery. Yeah. It's really
And then we cut to like, you know, several days later.
It's real Colin Robinson vampire vibes, energy vampire vibes.
Yes. And, you know, then we're basically near the end of the episode, like the next day or a couple days later at least. She's sitting with Sylvia in the living room of the mansion. She gets her memory back. She remembers that she totally lost the pearls. And, you know, we end with the classic Mr. Sheffield chasing her up a flight of staircase in rage. Because
okay. Now, I had a note here, but I want to change my note based on now realizing that this was part of like a big event to promote the Black Pearl perfume or whatever. Do you know, does the pearls, is that a through line through all of the guest appearances or are they all different?
So indeed, it is the through line that connects.
I knew it because my original note was, hey, how come at the end of this episode they're basically like, fuck her pearl.
Yeah. And I also was like kind of disappointed because I was like, oh, I kind of thought we'd get one more Liz Taylor sighting. I was like, oh, I guess they literally only could get her for that one scene. But no, she actually was just signed on to do a lot for the network that week.
You know, look, a lot of people want to talk about Marvel movies and the shared universe and that stuff. But like, credit to sitcoms because this actually opened like memory floodgates of like, oh yeah, this used to be a real thing where sitcoms would pick one week where they would have a special event. And not only would that special event, like, you know, thematically tie them, but they would actually plan like overlapping stories for certain actors to like cross from episode to episode in a very like, you know, comics shared universe special crossover kind of way. And honestly, they used to do it during sweeps. People were always interested in it. So I feel like it's just like short-term memory that people now are like, Marvel's building a shared universe and it's blowing people's minds. And it's like, people have always loved this. People love a crossover, man. For whatever reason, they love to know. Yeah, people love to know that the thing that they love over there exists in the same universe with the thing over here, even if the characters never meet each other. What do you think what base thing in us as humans do you think it is that makes us love that so much?
Why is it so
like,
great?
Why do we love?
I think because we love these characters and we naturally like to be like, oh, what if they all met? Like, what if they were at a party? Like
all of our friends are friends.
Yes. Like I remember like, you might not remember this because I don't think you're the right demographic. But there was a WB promo in like 1999. And it was at the height of all of the WB teen shows when it had like totally the market cornered for like teen and tween girls. It was Dawson's Creek, Roswell, Felicity, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Seventh Heaven. Like, and there was all these like teen icons in the show, you know, and the promo was literally just all of the stars, the teen stars from every show partying together at like some sort of 90s nightclub. Like it was just like everybody I knew lost their mind.
Well, that reminds me of, and I'm definitely not the right demographic for this, but I probably know this and you don't because I'm weird. But they did a thing on Disney Channel where they had these interstitials where Mickey Mouse had a nightclub that he owned, and every Disney character, like all the villains, all the heroes, they would all be hanging out in the nightclub together, and like the camera would like pan through, and like Captain Hook would be having like drinks with Jafar, and like, you know, they'd be watching like Tinkerbell perform on stage, and that used to blow my mind. It used to blow my, I was like, I love this so much. I love it. I want them all to meet. I mean, you know, Roger Rabbit is another good example. So, all right, well, let's, this was 10 out of 10. This goes up, this shot to the top of my list as actually one of my favorite episodes of this whole series so far. I just think all the writing was on point. I have so many lines. So let's get into segments and we'll do some stuff. And now segments.
So segments.
Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments.
We can move on to our segments.
And now segments.
Segments with Sean and Toria.
I loved, so when Liz Taylor is about to come over, Mr. Sheffield looks at Fran. He goes, "What are the rules?" And Fran, reciting them as if she's been told them 100 times, goes, "Niles and only Niles is to answer the door. I'm to stay away from your office, and I'm forbidden to create a diversion such as a small but containable fire." Just the fact that they had to go over it with her in such detail, like, A, proves that she's probably pulled something like that before.
Yes.
But B, just that she's capable of it.
By the way, shocking to me that there's no quotes for this episode on IMDb. Mm-hmm. I was shocked because this is one of the best. First of all, Fran in the beginning when Mr. Sheffield finally is like, when she sort of like busts them and realizes everyone's kind of lying to her, and she tricks Cece, which that was also great writing. Her tricking Cece into telling her who's coming over was great. Mm-hmm. And then she goes on this rant where she's like, "Oh, you never let me meet any of your famous friends, and it's not fair, and I'm always stuck taking care of little Ricky." And then she stops herself and realizes that she's just being Lucy Ricardo.
Yes.
And like, it's a really great meta moment that's like not so meta that it hits you over the head with it, but you do realize how much like him being in the entertainment industry and her constantly wanting to meet celebrities and like that is like such a that's such a story like generator for the show. Mm-hmm. It really does mirror Lucy so much, and like I know that was like a huge inspiration for her. So that was one of my favorite. I loved that whole moment. I thought that was such a good meta moment.
I love the fact that when Fran gets amnesia, even though she can't remember where her own bedroom is in the mansion, she does know Mr. Sheffield's Amex Gold number and his mother's maiden name. Yes.
I also like when she has amnesia and they're in the hospital and they're trying to jog her memory and the kids come in and she's like, "Wait a minute." She's like, "Are you guys..." What does she say? She basically alludes to them being the Von Trapp. She's like, "Are you in like, do we sing a lot in front of like a mountain backdrop or something?"
Yeah, and she's like, "And do I have like a butch haircut? Did I have a really butch haircut?" Which I always did wonder why Julie Andrews had that haircut for that. Like even as a little kid, I was always like, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me.
Because of the Nazis.
No.
Oh, I don't know then. I never saw that movie. No, I'm just kidding. I've seen it. I also like when they're in the bathtub and Maxwell is explaining, he's like trying to like almost telling her that he's her husband, and then he's like, no, I'm not your husband, I hired you. And she goes, "I'm a hooker?" Yeah. Well, that explains my shoes.
Yeah, that was great.
And then also there's a beat later where they're in the dining room, the breakfast table, and he's like he's like, you find out Mr. Sheffield has unplugged all the phones so that Liz Taylor can't call about her diamond or her pearl necklace being missing. And then Niles goes, "Yes, but what if someone calls saying they found it?" And he's like, "Plug the phones back in." And then he turns to Brighton and he goes, "Got any more bright ideas?" Which I thought, I cackled. I thought that was so fucking funny. Yeah, because I just like that. I like that, like, it implies that there was like a brainstorm session where they were like, "What do we do about this?" And then Brighton was the one who goes, "Just unplug the phones." And they were like, "Yeah, that'll do it."
It so tracks with Mr. Sheffield's character of it's like the buck does stop at him and he's always enraged at everybody else.
I love it so much. And then in that same, or sorry, do you have more? Mm-mm. In that same scene, Fran coming in and going, "So wait a minute, I've dressed like this for 3 years and we've never hooked up. What is it you do again?" And he's like, "I produce musical theater." And she goes, "Oh, okay, that explains it."
Yes. I had that line written down too.
So much good stuff, guys. This was 10 out of 10. I know at least one of the co-creators of this show follows along and listens. And God, pat yourself on the back, Peter Mark Jacobson, because this was a great episode.
Yeah, you delivered on an episode that probably felt like it had a lot of pressure, with a guest star like this.
Ballpark. Really did. Yeah.
And it's kind of tough when you have these guest stars on because I'm sure they have all these things and they're, they need to be portrayed a certain way. They're only willing to do certain things. You only have them for a certain amount of time. And it just was this beautiful recipe that they made to fit all that in and make it feel like very natural and true to the nanny sensibility.
Yeah.
And I think the way you do that, and it's pretty easy to do with somebody like Fran Drescher and say a Renee Taylor, is you make them the butt of the joke, which they do again so beautifully. Like, the image of them curtsying out, saying "my queen," will be like, I'm still laughing. Okay, so
and this meeting bestills an honor on me, which is unparalleled in my universe, is forever going to be in my lexicon now. I think it's so funny. I want to say it to someone so badly.
It's such a bumbling fools.
It's like one part bumbling fool and one part like dialogue ripped from the Godfather.
Yes,
You know what I mean? You do me a great honor on this my daughter's wedding day. All right, so nanny trivia.
I was going to say that I didn't clock any Yiddish in this episode.
No Yiddish. We didn't have time for Yiddish.
But there's too much else going on because the trivia, this is a bear of some trivia. This, was the first part of CBS's Liz Night events, which featured a storyline concerning Elizabeth Taylor's lost pearls that crossed over between The Nanny, Can't Hurry Love, which was a show which only lasted for one season. It was sort of like a pre-Friends. Well, I guess Friends was already on the air.
I wrote, what the fuck is this? It was like a Friends knockoff. Yeah. The only notable person is Mariska Hargitay was in it. Although you could maybe make the argument that Scott Baio is notable, but screw him. He sucks now.
So then, so it was The Nanny, into Can't Hurry Love, into Murphy Brown, which was the other show that lasted and sort of stood the test of time, and then ended with High Society, which also only lasted a season. It was kind of like an American version of Absolutely Fabulous, if you're familiar with that.
Does star the great Jean Smart. And when I saw that, I was like, man, I don't know what this show is, but I would go back and watch it just for Jean Smart.
Yeah, and it's only a season. So those are the
Mary
4
McDonald.
shows.
Oh, wow. This show's got a good credit.
Yeah. So the plot line that follows into all 4 of these episodes tracks as follows. Fran loses the pearls in the cab. Now, on Can't Hurry Love, the character Annie finds the pearls in that cab, though it's a different driver now, and she decides to wear them on a date instead of turning them in. However, she loses them on that date, and they end up getting stolen. Then, in Murphy Brown, who's like a famous, news anchor, talk show host in her show, she's supposed to have Elizabeth Taylor on the show, but news of this, very, very priceless black pearl necklace getting lost sort of overtakes the story, and Elizabeth Taylor decides not to come on the show. She cancels her big interview because she needs to find these pearls. So that's how it intersects with Murphy Brown. Then finally, we move on to the women in high society. They get robbed in their home by the same thief who appeared in Can't Hurry Love and who had stolen the pearls that Annie wore. When the police catch him, they return everything. And they also accidentally return those pearls, thinking that they, belong to the 2 women in high society. So then Elizabeth Taylor comes to retrieve the pearls. But the only thing is, it's noted that Elizabeth Taylor didn't really appear in all of these episodes. In high society, it's literally like Elizabeth Taylor double. You just see her arm reaching out of a car
Elizabeth
window.
Taylor was like, I'm not going on these.
Yeah, it was like
I'll do Murphy Brown and The Nanny, but what are these other shows?
Yeah, and then it was like, just it was either her actual voiceover or a voice impersonator that's like, thank you for my pearls. And in the thing I read, it noted that this was the last episode, like the season and series finale of both High Society and Can't Hurry Love. And so they were like, oh, it's kind of a shame they didn't actually get Elizabeth
They were
Taylor.
going to cancel those shows. CBS must have already known, like, these shows are not doing well, so.
But here's another really interesting thing. So for this one-time event, viewers got one final scene featuring the nanny, which I guess aired at the end of High Society. And it's a scene in which Mr. Sheffield is relieved that Liz Taylor has gotten her jewels back.
Wait a minute. Are you saying the nanny and High Society had a crossover?
Yes. This scene.
Oh, we got to find this episode.
So, yes, I couldn't find it online, but I didn't do the biggest deep dive just because there was already so much other trivia I was digging into. But there is a scene that exists. Maybe someone can find it, where Maxwell is relieved that Elizabeth Taylor got her jewels back. And that she'll then like work with him after this huge debacle, because that's what that whole initial meeting in this episode was about. But then Fran kind of casually floats this idea that maybe the pearls Liz got back are fakes. She's like, that's a possibility. And Mr. Sheffield like starts to freak out, and then Fran's like, no, calm down. Like, it would be impossible. No one would even have the opportunity. Cut to Cabby, Rosie O'Donnell with the real pearls, hollering a thanks to Elizabeth Taylor.
Wow.
And that's how that was the button on this whole 4-episode saga.
Wow. Oh, I want to find that episode. I got to find that episode now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not streaming anywhere, High Society. Come on, Paramount Plus. Is this
maybe
a CBS?
it's on YouTube or Vimeo.
It's a CBS show. It should be on Paramount Plus. What am I paying for? Oh, right, I'm not paying. I'm using someone else's platform. All right, rant done. What's next?
It's the Fran or the CC. They were both very starstruck people in this episode.
Yeah.
I think I do get starstruck, but not in a. I get starstruck much in the way that I do when I'm like interested in when I have a crush on somebody. It causes me to ignore them and maybe even be a little ruder than I might normally be, because I'm so self-conscious of not wanting to seem weird or not wanting to seem a certain way. So it definitely changes. I'm not my real self around, I think, famous people, which is unfortunate because they are just people. But, instead of asking for an autograph or being like, I just, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's you. I'd almost be like, hey, excuse me, I was in line.
Okay. Also, quick update. If you're listening to this episode, I have found High Society on archive.org in its entirety. Someone uploaded every single episode and a bunch of promos. So we'll add the link to that in the show notes for this episode.
Cool. Yeah. I feel like you're pretty cool as a cucumber around celebs.
Yeah, I don't. There are a handful of people that I would be very nervous to meet. The biggest is sadly no longer with us. Would have been Robin Williams. I would have probably had some kind of small panic attack and just been very overwhelmed to meet that person. But other than that, I mean, look, I feel like the more time you spend around celebrities, the less of a mystique there is. And we're living in a society right now where, as a whole, I feel like there's less of them. I mean, it's what we were talking about earlier, the sort of death of. A lot of people wrote a lot of think pieces about how the Johnny Depp trial was the death of the celebrity, the Hollywood celebrity.
Yes. And I'll say that too. I don't think it's just that now I live in LA. I think that like that era, like say of the Elizabeth Taylor type fame, and then, even when we were growing up, sort of the like Brad Pitt, Gwyneth Paltrow level fame, like that. Now with social media and everything, like it doesn't exist anymore.
They're more accessible now. Like I used to, when I was growing up, the only time you saw a famous person was on TV, in a movie, or on a magazine. And that was it. And you never heard from them unless it was in one of those three things. Like those were the only places you could ever see them ever. And like now, if I was a kid growing up in Florida, I could get on Instagram and look at what, The Rock's house and daughter look like. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it was much more like, I think, at least in American culture, it is what filled the whatever weird human need we had for royalty. Like, it's like from from thousands and thousands of years of human history, we have this weird thing where we like to look upwards and we like to kind of like think that these creatures sort of like are somehow like better and cleaner and like walk above us. We always like to look upwards, and we don't have a royal family. And I think for a long time, that's what Hollywood felt like for us.
And weirdly, that shifted to like Instagram influencers, which that'll have to be a conversation for another time because I don't get that shift.
Yeah. Now we know all about, pooping in beds and stuff. So it just doesn't.
It's all so weird. We live in a society.
But so that's the Elizabeth Taylor episode. Fantastico. We loved it so much. I could do a whole podcast on Elizabeth Taylor actually, and that whole era of Hollywood. But it was amazing. Nanny, you've done it again. You've reaffirmed our love.
Reaffirmed our love. And I could do a whole episode on a podcast episode on this episode of the show. And I just did. And it was great. And I'm sure people out there listening, my Australia people, I'm sure people have thoughts on this episode. I hope you guys loved it as much as we did. Please, please, please reach out to Mr. Chef Pod on Instagram or Twitter. I've been monitoring the Twitter pretty closely and responding to people. So if you are on there, give me a shout. Hello. And Toria's very diligent with Instagram. But let us know what you thought of this episode. Also, please find our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or any of the other numerous places where it is, and leave a 5-star review and a rating and help other people find it. Give it a little boost. We'd love to reach even more people in more places that love this show as much as we apparently do.
Though while you were talking, I was looking up WB promo 2000, year 2000.
Did you find it?
Oh yeah, I'm going to send it to you.
You send it to me, and I'll add that to the show notes too. And that's it. That's it for us.
Good night and good luck.
Good night and good luck and goodbye. And I'll talk to you later, Toria.
Maybe you will, maybe you won't.
Goodbye, everyone. The Flushing Girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
I go, Miss Fine.